Sometimes we talk to our CrossFitters. Sometimes we talk to Glen Ed business leaders. Sometimes we talk to the coaches at CFE, and sometimes we just hang out, have a conversation by the fire. This is going to be one of those fireside chats, just me and my dude Dallas today. Stick around.
Welcome to the CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast, where we hear and learn from our coaches, CrossFitters, and Glen Ed community leaders. Now, here are your hosts, Dallas and Greg.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast. You know us, and I believe you love us. It is your co-host here. That could be a stretch. It is Dallas Amsden coming at you, and so excited to be with you all. As the intro video said, this is always our opportunity to meet and greet with some of our local CrossFitters, chat with some of our coaches, meet some of the Glen Ed community owners, or as G said right there at the very beginning, sometimes we just sit around and have a fireside chat. So Dallas Amsden here. Great to have you all. And with me, as always, my co-host.
What's up, guys? I'm Coach G, one of the coaching team at CFE, the GM at CFE, sometimes CEO of CFE, and friend of all CrossFitters, friend of all things CrossFit. Here just to conversate and see where the conversation takes us, occasionally share a nugget of wisdom, although don't get your hopes up too high. I'm not that good at it.
Oh, come on. Let's talk about, okay, so first of all, these fireside chats are hilarious because they're digital firesides, which is awesome.
Not so loud. I'm trying to protect the illusion. For those who are watching us on the YouTubes, you can see this gorgeous fire that I have behind me that occasionally flickers out when the Wi-Fi is a little bit too slow.
Is it the kind, I don't know if I've asked you this, I think maybe I have. Does it crackle?
It does not crackle.
You don't get the popping wood sound? Oh, nope. I need to send you one that's got the crackling wood sound. I used to work for a nonprofit back in the day, and actually it was the best sales training and some of the best presentation training I ever did. I was the director of fundraising and development and marketing for them. But I had a mentor who he had been in the nonprofit fundraising space for, at the time, 4.5 decades. He's rounding out 6 decades now. He's still active, late in his 70s, still teaching and training. But every month I would get an opportunity to fly and spend a day with him. And we would spend a day in his living room with the fireplace going, and he would send me out to get logs. And so I was always stacking the logs the right way, but having that crackle all day long was it was so meditative. And it was my favorite day of every month was to sit with Bill and
there's
learn.
Something really special, I think, about sitting by an actual fireplace where there's that crackle, that pop, there's the warmth, there's the smell of it.
Yep.
I was fortunate enough growing up, we did, at least at one point, have a real fireplace, and we enjoyed a real fire. Then my folks leveled up to like one like the propane fireplaces.
Yep.
Which it had a different smell that I'm not a fan of, but it had the
gas.
Yeah, it had the gas smell, it has an appearance to it. So it had that. I do kind of miss it sometimes. Every once in a while, my wife and I discuss the possibility of getting a real fireplace in our home, but maybe one day.
We do have a pit that I'll pull out and put in the yard during the summer and fall. And I'll sit out there for hours just listening to it and watching the flames. It's very, again, meditative. So everybody, just so you know, we don't have a topic. Let's just say it. We don't have a topic. We just thought let's have a conversation and see what flows. But my mind is going toward a topic now, G, as we talk about
also fires. But go ahead. Something you said earlier triggered a thought for me.
Well, I will defer to the gentleman from CrossFit Edwardsville. What would you like to say?
Well, you said that there was somebody that you had known that was in this nonprofit fundraising for 40 years for the best sales training you ever received. And I've been in sales of some sort ever since I was 19 years old.
Yep.
And one of the first businesses that I ever started required me to do some door-to-door sales as a part of it. Fantastic training, fantastic learning. You learn a ton about psychology, learn about self-presentation. And, I look back on that, fondly now for all the things that I learned. But I often think to myself, part of what I do at CFE is sales stuff. And if you look at my sales numbers, like my closing percentages, you would think, wow, Coach G he's great at sales.
Yeah.
But I often think this thought that, well, it's only because I'm working with this service, this product, that I've seen it transform so many lives that I believe in it so completely. And it's easy for me to sell this one thing. It's easy for me to, you know, for me to outline to Dallas, to John Smith, how this can, help transform your life. But if you ask me to sell a car, I'd be useless to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I may not believe in the product. I don't know that much about the product, but I know this one back and forth. And so I'm good at selling this one thing. I'm good at selling this one category, I guess you'd say. But outside of that, I'm probably useless as far as sales go.
Well, I think so the secret that he taught me, and this was nonprofit, but it actually crosses over into every industry, is he said, you're not selling them, you're not trying to close them, you're not trying to get them to sign the dotted line, or in our case, give, to the cause. Instead, what you do in development, so slightly different than the actual sale. Like, we think of sales as, let me grab my plaid jacket and let me tell you all my benefits and features and how it can benefit your life. And a lot of that is based on old advertising models, but the model that still works is you get in their life. He said it in 3 things. Number 1, get in their life. Number 2, discover their dreams. And number 3, show them how what you do can make those dreams a reality.
I like that.
That was it. And so you find out, and I can attest to this. When I booked my no sweat conversation with you, and then excuse me, then came into the gym and sat with a group of people. You spent the time getting to know people, discovering what their dreams were for their fitness, for their health, if they wanted to look better, feel better, perform better, as we always say. And you took that time to actually get to know the person a little bit and where they are in their journey. And then you showed them how what you do and what CrossFit does allows them to actually attain that dream. And so your numbers, and you are passionate about it. And that's, I think that's the thing too, is I could run through the mill and sell stuff that just needs to be sold in order to make a paycheck. But if I'm more excited, if I'm more passionate about it, if I have a stake in the game as to why I love the product, it's the old hair club for men. I'm not only the president, I'm also a client. It's that old commercial from back in the
I remember that.
90s.
I like that.
Because you will sell what you believe, and you will, and again, take it away from the word sale or sell because it's such a loaded word. It's that you will actually testify to what you know and love.
Absolutely. And what you're excited about. So I'm wondering, like, what's Dallas Amsden excited about? What's coming down the pipeline that gets you fired up, gets you jazzed?
Oh my gosh. Again, if it has to do with a microphone, I get jazzed. So I'm getting ready to start a new keynote mastermind group. And so for what people, if you don't know what I do, my company is called Communicate to Succeed. I'm a communication and digital content consultant. I help not only brands craft their stories and their marketing messaging, but also I help individuals, especially I love working with, and this is a group I'm really honing in on here in 2022, love working with introverted entrepreneurs who think that they have to, when they give a presentation or they have that sales conversation, they actually think, well, I have to fake confidence. I have to put on extroversion. I have to put on those things. Rather, what I teach them how to do is I give them the framework of powerful communication techniques. Sure. And we build their outlines and we build their templates. And I know I've talked to you about this before, G, but it's all so that they can actually leverage their introversion, not fake extroversion, leverage their introversion, leverage their personal passion for what they love, and actually go and emotionally connect to their audience in a way that converts prospects into clients. And that's what I'm super jazzed about. So the keynote mastermind group I'm working with right now is I start it. It's a 6-week sprint, and you go through and you learn all the techniques that it takes to give a keynote that's connecting emotionally and psychologically with people, right brain and left brain templates that we use, so that you can step into any room and go, hey, I know how to be passionate and how to demonstrate my expertise, even though I'm an introvert. So the keynote mastermind group is 6 weeks long, and I just start them every couple of weeks, and I try and get 4 or 5 people into them so that they've got a small group that you can run the gambit with. And by the end of it, you walk away with a 5-minute, 15-minute, and 50-minute outline, your presentation slides, and all of your tools and your templates in place. So I'm super jazzed about that, because many people don't believe this. I'm an introvert.
I believe that, but I know you. I know you.
You know
I know
me.
you're channeling a skill set that supersedes the fact that you're an introvert.
Right.
And I've always kind of wondered, Dallas, like who inspires you? Like who are some presenters? Who are some presenters? Who are some speakers that you look at them, you're like, wow, that guy is amazing. And I know that your background being as diverse as it is, I know that you have been in the comedy world, you've been in the church world.
Yeah.
You've played a lot of playing fields.
Yeah.
Like, who do you look at and say, like, that guy is a great presenter? That guy is just great at connecting with an audience. And there's, people from politics, people from sports, leaders of sports teams. Who is it that you look at and you're like, I would love to channel that spirit when I'm presenting?
This could be, I will keep the list as brief as I possibly can, because I could talk about this for a long time. I can learn so much from stand-up comics. I think that it's one of the most key, crucial things you can do is get up, build an immediate bond with the audience, be unique in your voice, and actually take them on an emotional journey to where they actually trust you with their emotions. A comic, I heard one comic say, might have been Seinfeld back in the day, it's almost like a group hypnosis that occurs, because people start to think with you and let you actually carry their thoughts and take them to the funny extreme. So there's a number of comics that I really enjoy listening to the way they craft. I think
Here we go.
Here we go. Get your popcorn ready. Then we'll switch over to
get the popcorn ready.
Well, then I'll switch over to pastors and keynote people and business leaders as well. But first and foremost, I always go to comedy, because I think it's a craft that if you can master the formulas, then you can go anywhere with it. So for me right now, number one on the list is Bill Burr. I think Bill Burr is insightful and incisive. I think he cuts through all the politically correct stuff and just says what he's thinking. And I think he crafts jokes masterfully. I think he takes you down a path you're expecting, and then he swerves on you and you go, wow, that was awkwardly hilarious. I just think he's brilliant in most of those ways. And of course, I'm saying this before any and all of these people may or may not get canceled. So take that with whatever the grain of salt is.
Right. You're worried that they might get Louis C.K. at some point, and you're like, like this. You don't want this podcast to become some sort of like a mark on your record. Like, hey, I'm a fan of Bill Burr. Like everybody was a fan of so and so until something from their past came out, and now you got to cancel them. And God,
I won't not be a fan of Bill Burr's comedy, regardless of whatever personal things he makes. I mean, when I first was listening to comedy, I had Bill Cosby albums. Mm-hmm. I had CD from his records that had been converted digitally into CDs. There's my age, everybody. I was in the CD era. But
we were both in the cassette era. Don't lie.
Well, that's true. I had cassettes growing up, but when I started really crafting and listening to comedy, that he was one of the ones I listened to. He had not yet been discredited, or his crimes had not come to light yet. And I still think the way he could hold an audience for 90 minutes was insane. How good he was at telling stories. and same with Louis C.K. Louis C.K. has an odd sense. Most comedians have an odd way of looking at the world. They look at it in a, an intriguing way.
Right.
So, but yeah, right now, actively, Bill Burr, I'll listen to anything he puts out. He's got a very East Coast vibe. Jim Jeffries is from Australia, and he tells hour-long stories. His stand-up sets are usually 1 or 2 long stories, and the way he can take you down a path and get laughs the whole way through these stories is crazy. He uses a lot of foul language. For those of you who are easily offended, just be aware that Jim Jeffries does that. I think I've always enjoyed Seinfeld's stuff. I always will check out people like The Machine, Bert Kreischer. I think he's a hoot and a half because he's ridiculously silly, but he's hilarious. There's a guy in Tennessee named Nate Bargatze who clean
actually
comic.
He's a guy in St. Louis recently, if I'm not mistaken.
He was just
either
here.
Been in town or is about to be.
Yeah. And so he's a lot of fun as well. His story-centered comic also. I think Joe Rogan's stand-up comedy is hilarious. It's absurdist. And I actually, translating him over, I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast fairly regularly, mostly when he's talking to comics, sometimes politicians and scientists as well, but mostly when he's having conversations with his friends. That's where I find him to be really great. But he can speak to MMA as well. It's insane. The dude is like prolific in the subjects he can cover. And then Eliza Schlesinger, I think she's hilarious as well.
I don't know her work at all. I've heard the name before.
One of her last specials on Netflix is called Elder Millennial. And she's kind of in our age range, but a few years younger. So when she talks about, the dialing an actual phone, she looks at oddly by the younger millennials. So I think she's a lot of fun. I think Nikki Glaser, although her material is very crass, I think she's actually very funny as well. So I listen to a wide range just so I can hear. And then Dave Chappelle is a master on the microphone. Cat Williams is awesome. I mean, I could keep going, but
a lot of comedic influences. A lot of comedic
influences. Yeah, and because I occasionally do stand-up comedy, it helps me keep that sharp. I learned it all though there's a book called the Stand-Up Comedy Bible by a woman named Judy Carter, and it's a great book for learning how to just craft a joke and how to pull on topics and find an angle and discover your voice. So those are people. Politically, I'm not as
Here we go.
Politically, there's a couple of people I like to check out, but one of them, it's kind of a blend between comedy and politics. I really like Bill Maher. He kind of sits on the left-hand side of the fence, but I always find his takes to be thoughtful and thought-provoking. I also will occasionally, on the right-hand side of the aisle, I will occasionally listen to Michael Knowles. He's one of the Daily Wire guys. Sometimes I find him a little repetitive and I don't listen to him very often, but I'm like, you literally just resaid the sound clip you played. So sometimes I'm like, that's not great, but I like the sound of his voice, as weird as that sounds. Then in the kind of corporate speak world, obviously we could all say everyone from Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins. Love listening to Maxwell. For me though, the guy that speaks mostly to the core of who I am at this era is Garrett J. White of Wake Up Warrior.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So his Wake Up Warrior stuff, he just knows how to speak directly to married businessmen with kids. That's his niche, and so most of his stuff really resonates with me. I'll always listen to anything that Gary Vaynerchuk has to say about marketing all the time. And I know you and I share, like, every now and again you share TD Jake stuff with me, or like former Navy SEALs. Like, we'll share stuff to each other. You just got to hear this guy talk. And then, for those who are a little more theologically motivated, I listen to a wide range there as well. I listen to, let me go back one more politically. although he's not politically, he psychology. Jordan B. Peterson.
For sure.
Jordan B. Peterson, I think, is one of the most exhaustively intelligent people in our society today, and I like the fact he's taken a lot of heat. What's funny is he gets heat from the far left and the far right, which is funny to me. But what if you listen to his 2.5 hour long lectures, which I have listened to plenty, he talks his way around a problem. So he'll say, well, then you have to consider this, but what Carl Jung wrote about that, but then before that, Freud did this. And he kind of talks his way around the problem in order to come up with a solution. And I think there's a lot of intellectual honesty in his process as he verbalizes it. He's not the best presenter, but if you've ever watched a video of him, you see him literally like head down, just processing out loud what his brain is going through.
I think what he's doing is he's looking at a problem or a concept from this angle.
Yeah.
And he sidesteps and looks at it from this angle, and then sidesteps it again, looks at it from this angle.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, here's a problem. All right, here's what I think is the solution. It's, let's really evaluate this. Let's turn it over several times.
Yep.
Let's keep spinning the Rubik's Cube, and all these different permutations until we fully understood what we're looking at.
Yep. And so I find that to be a very fun intellectual exercise to go on those journeys with him. I will listen to everyone from TD Jakes on the church world, TD Jakes and Stephen Furtick. Occasionally I'll throw on even a Joel Osteen. I know people think of him more of a self-help guy, but the way he crafts a talk is intelligent. Like he knows his craft. Before this gentleman was kind of discredited, James McDonald, the way he would just be in the word and walk you verse by verse through stuff. His former ministry was walking the word. So there's a lot of people, a lot of influences I listen to, and I like to watch things like the debates, political debates.
Yes.
Because I'm always thinking, how could that have been said in a way that wasn't sound bites? And I think that's one of the most key, crucial things in communicating to succeed, G, is we live in a soundbite culture. It's the lower third chyron, right? It's the alert, the CNN alert, Fox News alert, MSNBC news, breaking news. And we're taught to ingest information in sound bites. And we're also taught to load words with certain meaning.
For sure.
So that we can short form our conversations. And the best communicators will take a term and they'll say, now let me define this for you, because it's got weight. It's got its own gravity over here because of how it's been shaped by the culture. And a great communicator will say, for our purposes, we're going to define it as blank. And then
Jordan Peterson do that a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing to do because people just ingest sound bites. We have to sometimes say, okay, hold on. I'm about to say something that's going to trigger all of these preloaded definitions. So let's pause and let's talk about it. And I think that's
I find it
really
interesting
crucial.
that you seem interested to step away from that. I would contend that the opposite could be valuable, because so much of our world, as much of communication, is digested in these soundbite mini chunks.
Yep.
So the guy that has the Thursday evening talking head show knows that his show is going to be chopped up into 30-second sound bites, and it's going to go find its way through the social medias as it gets shared. And then the politician knows the same thing, and the guy who is a talking head on the NFL Sunday broadcast, same thing.
Yep.
The pastor of the megachurch on Sunday, his message would be chopped into these sound bites and then shared as well. And part of influence is recognizing, accepting, hey, the way that the world consumes information, the way that the world learns about X and Y and Z is in these sound bites that can be easily shared or seen in a 10-second pause on a thumb scroll. You know what I mean?
Totally. And so a great communicator knows when to leverage them and when to redefine them for impact. So sometimes you'll hear me lean into a thing. Like I just did I could get in trouble for this one, but this will be fun. At one of the last stand-up sets I did, I said, boy, it's a tough time in our culture to be a white woman named Karen.
Yeah.
And I did it on purpose to lean into the stereotype that goes along with that name right now,
Sure.
and there was obviously more to that joke that's for a club crowd, but I specifically leaned into the stereotype of that name so that I could go down my topic and my opinion on it and craft that as a joke. But the moment I said it to you, tough time in our society to be a white woman named Karen, you knew exactly what I was referencing.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Huh?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. And we all do. So sometimes you need to be able to lean into it to say, hey, now that I've already got all your presuppositions on this, great, let's have a conversation.
Right.
So those are important things. But I think crafting insightful, powerful communication is also not just a one-way thing. It's a back and forth, even with your audience. You see, Dave Chappelle's great at taking in what the audience is giving him and then twisting them on a dime to where they're laughing, and then he twists them and they're like, oh. So anyway, I could talk about this for hours. I know we wanted to keep this one short, but I'll talk about communication with anybody. And if anybody is interested in learning how to be a better presenter, especially introverted entrepreneurs, reach out to me.
Love it, man. I know it feels like this sort of conversation we're going to have to end a little suddenly.
Yeah.
Because we have another one coming up, but this is the sort of like topic that we both get very fired up about.
Yeah.
Messaging, communication, crafting a brand message.
Yep.
And then like, how do you communicate that effectively to your audience? Yep. I love stuff like this.
Yeah, we could probably go for an hour on this sometime.
We wouldn't stop at an hour if we were allowed to, but we'll go ahead and wrap up this podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We hope you gain some insight perhaps on communication. Maybe you are that introverted leader of business, the introverted business person. Maybe you've been able to see something through this podcast you couldn't see before, and hopefully it's entertained, educated you. Well, as we like to do, love to say, we hope that everybody out there has a great day, a championship day, and we will see you guys again in the next episode.